As we move forward here, you're going to notice that our instructions have changed for these next 4 problems. So for these next 4 problems, it wants us to solve each equation by taking square roots. So this is actually section 9.4. Looking at problem number 5, if we want to solve this quadratic by taking square roots, the first thing we want to do is get the n squared completely by itself. So we are currently multiplying the n squared by 4. To undo multiplying by 4, we're going to divide by 4 to get n squared equals 16. Now we want to solve for n, and we currently have n squared. So hopefully you remember, to undo squaring something, you take the square root of that thing. But when we add in the square root, we also need to add in a positive and a negative sign. So the square root and the n squared cancel each other out, and we just end up with n equals, and then we have plus or minus the square root of 16. Can you think of what the square root of 16 might be? What number multiplies by itself to get you 16? That number would be 4. So you can write your answer like this or like this. Both of those are accurate answers. So n can be positive 4 and negative 4. You can write it as plus or minus 4, or you can write it as 2 separate answers. Moving on to number 6, we have n squared plus 3 equals 29. Again, we're going to solve using square roots, so the first thing we want to do is get the n squared completely by itself. We're currently adding 3 to the n squared, so let's subtract 3 from both sides. So we have n squared equals 26. Now we want to get just n, but we currently have n squared, so we're going to take the square root of both sides. And when you write in the square root part, you need to remember that plus or minus sign. So the square root and the squared cancel each other out. We end up with n equals plus or minus the square root of 26. Now we want to think, are there any perfect squares that go into the number 26? So I can think of 1 times 26. 2 times 13 makes 26, but none of those are perfect squares. And 4 is our next smallest perfect square. 26 is not evenly divisible by 4. You also can't divide it by 9. You also can't divide it by 16. So our answer here, the only thing we cannot do anything to simplify the radical. So our answer here is just n equals plus or minus the square root of 26. If you don't like writing it like that, you can write it as 2 separate answers, and it means the exact same thing.